A lot of you probably don't remember Studio One, but Studio One was like the club in West Hollywood to go to. I mean, not only was it just the gay club, but it was often visited by many celebrities like Liza Minnelli, Elizabeth Taylor. It was not unusual to see them among the crowd. And I remember we were there 9 p.m. and like nobody was there. And like 10 p.m. and people were starting to trickle in. And 11 o'clock, still not very crowded. So at that point, me and my friend Mike says, wow, this club is supposed to be like the club, but there's like hardly anybody here. Let's go somewhere else. So of course, people didn't start arriving until 12 midnight. Little did we know that. So as we were walking downstairs, Casey Cannon was walking upstairs and our eyes locked. We were like, wow, and we said a couple words and he said, well, I'm going upstairs with my friends. He goes, do you want to come up with us? My friend Mike was like, no, we're going to another bar. So Casey said, here's my number. Maybe we can go out for a cup of coffee or, out for lunch or something. So Casey Cannon was my first boyfriend, and he was just this wonderful man. As it turned out, he was a fireman. Yeah, right. Fireman fantasies. But I was so naive back then. I was just like, oh, okay, you're a fireman. That's cool. It was like not that big deal for me. But when I would tell my friends, are like, oh, Robert's dating a fireman, a really hunky, good-looking fireman. But we started this more as a friendship, and of course, after that, the sparks flew. He was very handsome to say the least. But he was such a nice man, and he was a nice gentleman, and he was just a great guy. And he just showed me so much to just be unapologetically who I was, to be proud who I was, to not make excuses for it. Of course, he was so masculine that you could have never tell. So, he didn't have to worry about being perceived as being gay, as most of us did. And he was such a wonderful role model. We would go to LA Pride, and we will hold hands, and then we would kiss in the middle of the street, and he loved doing that, and he loved shocking people doing that, and it was just such a wonderful expression of our love for each other. He introduced me to a whole new world because he was so out there in his own ways. He was a very good friend of Tina Marie, the singer. He lived in Venice, in that area, and that's where he would tell me stories about her. How when they were growing up, Tina Marie was like one of his, best friends, and how, once he got his driver's license, he would be driving her over to Motown in LA, and how Tina Marie eventually met Rick James and he produced her album, and how she blew up. And I didn't know whether to believe him or not because he was telling me these stories. And I remember one time he said, hey, I got tickets to go see Tina Marie because she was playing at the Forum. And I remember that I said, okay, now I'm going to find out if this guy really knows Tina Marie or doesn't. And of course he did, because he got us like great seats, and he was waving towards Tina, and Tina was just so happy to see him, and she ran down from the stage and started kissing him and hugging him, and it was like, oh my God, he does know Tina Marie. And then he introduced her to me, and I was of course starstruck because who doesn't love Tina Marie? And yeah, he was such a great guy. And another way that he influenced me, he was a big, big fan of K-Rock, K-R-O-Q, and alternative music. And I wasn't. I was more into pop music. I used to listen to Kiss FM. And I remember when I would visit him, he would have K-Rock going on in the background. And he introduced me to all these new bands. And I remember he had all these videos of Depeche Mode, The Cure, New Order going on in the background. I became such huge fans of New Order, Depeche Mode, and The Cure. I still go see them in concert. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go see Depeche Mode next month at the Forum. And he had such a big influence on me on listening to alternative music. And to this day, I still hear those songs we used to sing along, or those videos we used to hum along to. And I still see us, cuddling each other, holding each other, caring for each other, singing these very dark, strange Depeche Mode songs that I've learned to love in so many ways. Of course, Casey knew the Getty family. Yes, the Getty family. And I remember he would take us on these private tours of the Getty Museum. And I was just like, wow, he introduced me to all these different art forms and different ways of seeing art and thinking of art. So Casey Cannon was a huge influence on my early gay life. Unfortunately, Casey, like most people in my generation, did contract AIDS. I would call him and talk to him, and after a while, he stopped returning my calls, and I would visit him, and he no longer lived where he lived. So we lost contact. Um, I don't know what happened to him. I can imagine what happened to him. But what he taught me was just to be strong and be unapologetically who I was. And he was such a great role model. Uh, I miss him dearly. I think about him often. You never forget your first. And I just think about what would have happened if he wouldn't have contracted AIDS. The trips that we had planned that were never to be. The plans that we had, we had plans to build a house, make a home, travel. I remember the last time I saw him, and he told me that he had AIDS. And I remember telling him, I don't care, we can just practice safer sex or be more safe about it. And I remember just the sadness in his eyes and just this overwhelming darkness. And I said, Casey, that doesn't mean we can't still be with each other. If that's not what you want, that doesn't mean we can't be friends. Casey, wherever you may be, I know you're in a good place because you were such a great guy. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for everything.